Hello everybody, my name is Ryan, and you might know me from the Hurdy Gurdy Cafe podcast, which I've been doing with Sergio Gonzalez. I'm doing this video for Marty Jo, and her website is littlebitsofinteresting.com. She creates nerdy gurdy kits, so she sends out nerdy gurdy kits to people. This is one of those kits here, and I've participated in the building of 3 of these so far. Marty thought it might be nice to hear a little bit about how I got involved in the hurdy-gurdy and my interest in the nerdy-gurdy. I've always been interested in the hurdy-gurdy. Way back when I was in love with Led Zeppelin, and I saw the movie The Song Remains the Same, and I saw Jimmy Page playing this really strange instrument. I had no idea what it was, and I finally figured out it was a hurdy-gurdy. Thought it was kind of neat, even though it sounded terrible in the movie to my ears. And then I saw Page and Plant in Pittsburgh in 1995, and the patron saint of hurdy-gurdy was playing with them, Nigel Eaton, who happens to be the season finale guest on the Hurdy Gurdy Cafe podcast of season 1. And when I heard that and I could hear what a hurdy-gurdy could do, I fell even more in love. Fast forward a couple decades, at least a decade and a half, and I had considered getting a hurdy-gurdy, but all of my Irish musician friends told me it was crazy. He said they're screechy, they're loud, they're nasty, they're not going to fit in a session, and I believed them. Until one day, I started doing some more research into the hurdy-gurdy, and I found a video of Andrei Vinogradov. You might want to look him up if you're not familiar with him. And the sounds he got from that hurdy-gurdy just made my whole being melt. I thought, of all the music I've ever played, it's this that I would love to be able to hear myself do on an instrument. And so I became more interested in the hurdy-gurdy. Now, I didn't do a whole lot of research. I'm usually pretty good at that, but I didn't pull it off real well this time, and I ended up getting an altar wind hurdy-gurdy, because when you type it in, if you're in the USA, that's all that pops up, which is kind of a shame. And I thought, well, can't be too bad. And so I got one, and it taught me, or I was able to figure out how to do fingering with the left hand and a little bit of crank motion. It sounded okay, but in time I sort of came to know the limitations of the altar wind, and not many people even recommend them because they just don't work right usually, and also they don't hold their value very well. If you get a good hurdy-gurdy, you'll pretty much probably, if you take care of it, be able to sell it for what you paid for it. But things like altar wind or certain hurdy-gurdys you might find on Etsy, places like that, they're not going to hold their value well. They're not going to be able to do what you need it to do should you ever decide to start learning hurdy-gurdy seriously from a teacher or going to workshops. You're going to have a lot of trouble with it. So I did some more research, and I found the hurdy-gurdy community on Facebook, and they were extremely helpful. They helped me to find a good hurdy-gurdy builder. Neil Brook built my second hurdy-gurdy, which I'll show you here in a minute, and I began to see just what was possible with the hurdy-gurdy. And in time, after I got my Neil Brook and I sold my altar wind for half what I paid for it, which is fine, I think that's what it's worth, I began taking lessons with Sergio Gonzalez and then also Steven Tyler, and I got more engrossed in the hurdy-gurdy. And Sergio recommended checking out a nerdy-gurdy. I thought, okay, that's kind of neat. I would like to learn the ins and outs of the hurdy-gurdy. And a friend of mine, we'd talked about possibly trying to build one, so we thought this might be a good project, and I ordered 3 of them off the bat, and I thought, well, it might take that many to get it right. It doesn't. The first one's actually my favorite and the best one. But I got involved in the nerdy-gurdy because I wanted to know the ins and outs of potentially how the hurdy-gurdy could work. Also, for the price, it is an amazing instrument. It works much better than my altar wind ever did. And this costs, total maybe $500, $550 after I had to buy all the parts and put it all together. Or after it was put all together by my friend Robert. You can play the melody, you can get the trumpet, the drones work, it pretty much stays in tune. It gets a little hairy up in the higher notes, but I found that if you just use a little bit lighter touch, it tends to work out a little bit better. But a lot of hurdy-gurdies, you kind of got to finesse the higher notes a little bit, so that's not too much of a stretch. And I've been playing for about 2 years now. 2.5 years, 3 years, somewhere around there. I took a little 6-month break for a while. So I'm learning. And the Nerdy Gurdy, as soon as I got this one, I wrote a little tune on it called the Hurdy Gurdy Jig. If you go to my YouTube channel, which this will probably be posted on there, and you look up Hurdy Gurdy Jig, there's a neat little jig that came out as soon as I picked up this instrument. The other two are pretty much the same. They're tuned a little bit differently. One's got a brown stain on it. It's tuned to D. This one's tuned to G. The third one's tuned to G as well. We're still working on those, getting the wheels dialed in. But this is what the hurdy-gurdy has been all about for me: making good friends, learning how to play a new instrument, figuring how the thing works, the history of it. And with the Hurdy Gurdy Cafe, Marty asked if I might talk about that a little bit. The Hurdy Gurdy Cafe podcast, that was my way of trying to contribute to the community. The Hurdy Gurdy community has been so supportive, so helpful in troubleshooting problems with hurdy-gurdies, telling me where I might get good information, learning tunes. A few people even transcribed tunes for me for free, which was really wonderful. I'm not a profound hurdy-gurdy player at the moment. I'm giving myself 20 years to do that. That's my goal. And so, in the meantime, the Hurdy Gurdy Cafe podcast is my way to bring the community together, to introduce people to builders, to musicians, and to raise awareness of, well, this instrument, what it's all about, as well as giving you good information. How to find a good hurdy-gurdy, how to know if it's a good hurdy-gurdy, what to look for in a hurdy-gurdy, who are reputable builders, how to get over the price problem with hurdy-gurdies. If you've got a price problem, get yourself a nerdy-gurdy kit. It'll work wonderful for you. Otherwise, just suck it up and recognize that some things are expensive. You know, if you look at oboes or student-grade violins, many of them, the lower end of them, cost as much as some of the most expensive hurdy-gurdies. So really, even the highest priced hurdy-gurdy is a good deal at this point in time, it seems. And sometimes you have to sacrifice. You know, one woman on the Hurdy Gurdy Cafe talked about how when she got one, she worked 2 jobs. And she worked 200 hours at a second job just to be able to afford a nice hurdy-gurdy. So we got to get beyond this issue of hurdy-gurdy players are elitist, or they're trying to keep you out. I'll tell you from experience, I wished I had started out saving more and buying a better hurdy-gurdy in the very beginning, because I ended up losing a lot of money and wasting a lot of time when I could have been improving my skills, and I could have had an instrument that held its value more. In the future for the Hurdy Gurdy Cafe, we've just got more people coming down the pike. So far, Efren Lopez, hopefully Toby Miller, Ermin Diaz, I believe Wolfgang Weichelbaumer expressed interest. I hope to get him on there. And we have a whole list of other players and builders that we're just slowly working through. And season 2 will be beginning soon, hopefully in 2021. Marty also asked if there are other kinds of instruments that I'm interested in. Well, I play octave mandolin, mainly. I also play banjo, regular mandolin, and guitar, but octave mandolin and Irish groups. And if there are other builders or what my dream instrument might be. Well, I love my Neil Brook instruments. This is the second hurdy-gurdy I got. It's the Raven by Neil Brook, and as you'll notice, it's a bit longer than the nerdy-gurdy. The scale length is longer. And it has a pretty rich, sonorous tone. So Neil Brook's work is just wonderful because he's also interested in Irish music. One of the reasons I was drawn to him as a builder, he has a recording, I think if you look it up, maybe it's on Bandcamp, called Rambles in the Park, Neil Brook and Rambles in the Park. It's all these Irish tunes played on the hurdy-gurdy. And in the beginning, Nigel Eaton, Cliff Stapleton, quite a few people told me it was crazy to try to play Irish tunes on the hurdy-gurdy because some Irish tunes have these really giant jumps. You're kind of jumping up octaves and so on, and doing that quickly can be a bit of a stretch. But I didn't know that at the time. I'd come from playing Irish music for 15, 20 years, so I had all these tunes in my mind, and I just sat down and thought, well, that's what I'm going to play. And since that's what I started playing, I just thought, well, if it's difficult, that's because the hurdy-gurdy is hard. And you just keep practicing until you get through it. So I've spent a lot of time learning Irish tunes, and Neil Brook's instrument works well for that. This is the Robin model. And future instruments that I would love to have, ideally, an instrument by Wolfgang Weichelbaumer. That's my dream instrument. Having been inspired and drawn into the hurdy-gurdy seriously by listening to Andrei Vinogradov, obviously that's the instrument that speaks to me most. Another builder I'd love to get my hands on, one of his instruments, is Barnaby Walters. Also makes these beautiful sonorous instruments, and his probably a bit smaller than this, but he's found a way to make a more compact body and also get that lovely sonorous cello-like sound. And as Sergio Gonzalez said, I like easy listening hurdy-gurdy. So some of the traditional French tunes, you're not going to find me jumping out of my seat to play those. I appreciate the musicianship there, but I like these, I don't know how you would describe it. Sergio says it's easy listening hurdy-gurdy, so maybe that's what it is. So those are the two instruments I would love to get my hands on and play, just because of what I've heard, the sound quality that they can produce, what that is. Other than that, that's about it. So I hope that you do get a chance to tune into the Hurdy Gurdy Cafe podcast. I'm proud of it. I think it's a really fun and wonderful project to kind of bring the community together. Get on the Hurdy Gurdy community on Facebook and really listen to the people there. I found them to be extremely kind, extremely helpful. They're not going to let you believe anything that's not true, and they're not going to let you get away with wasting your money. The advice that they give is going to be solid advice, and in the end, even if you decide you don't like the hurdy-gurdy, you'll be able to get right back out of it with your money intact. And that's the important thing, because too many people don't want to invest in an expensive instrument because, what if I don't like it? Well, if you invest in some of the, what I consider, even for the price, expensive instruments that are available on Etsy or through Alter Wind, you're going to be out a lot of money, because when you finally stick it in the closet or decide to sell it, you're not going to get your money back. But if you take the time to get a lovely instrument, the other thing is, if you get a wonderful instrument, even the nerdy-gurdy fills this role, you'll just get engrossed in it. You'll find yourself spending hours longer than you intended, because the sound of it, the joy of playing it, it just kind of consumes you. But if you get a cheap, crappy instrument, you're going to think it's neat, it's novel. People are going to go, "Ooh, what's that?" Which they'll do with a good hurdy-gurdy too. But you're just going to waste your time. So the hurdy-gurdy community will give you lots and lots and lots of good advice on buying instruments, on playing, on maintaining instruments. So make sure that you get in touch with the hurdy-gurdy community on Facebook. So once again, Marty, thank you for asking me to do this video. It's a pleasure to talk to the people on your website, and I do hope that they start looking into the nerdy-gurdy as a viable way of learning to play the instrument and seeing what it's all about. I think it's a wonderful learning experience. And then when you finally get something a little more pricey, probably, by a reputable, consistently appreciated builder, you won't look back. You'll find something for life that you'll be able to spend a lot of time experiencing joy with. So anyway, y'all take care, and thanks for the time.